that's much more plausible than they timed this, for a couple of days before the debate, which I doubt it'll even come up in, for some nebulous political benefit. Which, I mean, most Americans are not following the intricate details of the Assange case, so the idea that it'll move political opinion one way or another for Biden in that respect, electorally, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Also, I want to comment on this because, and all of you guys are right. All of you guys kind of touched on what I was going to say. So, just background on me: I used to be a special agent with Homeland. I've charged the Espionage Act before. I've put people in jail for this, so I understand how it works. And I think there's a multitude of different things going on. Number one, Assange has a vast amount of support all across the world, right? Number two, the MLAT process, which is how you extradite someone from a foreign country, especially a foreign national, and he's from Australia, which is a part of the Five Eyes. It's a very lengthy process. It's very difficult. And the way they're looking at it, like, is it going to benefit us to do the whole MLAT process, bring him over here? Is he going to serve that much time? Or we could just get him to plead guilty, because I know someone else mentioned here that the U.S. Attorney's Office likes numbers, which is true. They go off of, we need a high conviction rate because the feds are much different than the state. So they're looking at it, hey, getting him to plead guilty is still a W. He served his time in the UK. It's going to cost us a lot of money and effort to continue this extradition process, and it's not favorable publicly. Let's just go ahead and let this go, take the W with a plea of guilty, and that's what it is. So I think there's just not much benefit for the U.S. government to go through the rigmarole of the whole MLAT process with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they're like, fuck it, let's just go ahead, let him plead guilty, take the W, and it is what it is. Especially since he's an Australian, he comes from a Five Eyes country, he has an enormous amount of political support favorably, and jailing him doesn't seem good, right? So I think it's a political situation as well as, hey, it doesn't really benefit us to jail this guy. It's a multitude of different things. I think everyone is correct in their assessment.
Testing. Sorry, randomly didn't have sound all of a sudden. It was plugged in. Tie Sight Shadow Games Report. We're playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 again tonight. My stream gave out last night. It kept on telling me that it was live whenever it wasn't, so I had no clue. Yeah, whenever these things lie to you, there's not really much you can really do besides, I guess, just kind of hope and pray that something will clean itself up. Looks like the connection is already a little choppy. I chewed my internet provider out earlier. I'm just like, I'm done with it. Like, I don't know what you got to do to clean up all this messy connection, but you know, it's like I know that you can have a steady connection. That's my main issue. Is that it sucks whenever you already know that things could be cleaned up if they wanted to. Why is my mic being weird? Oh, it reset itself. Okay. Let's set it right there. Hopefully it doesn't pop too much. You can put it around 5 decibels. I'm also kind of worried that this game might not show up well with the resolution. I'm not really sure what that's about either. I noticed last night's video was a little bit zoomed in. EA games, whenever I stream them, it's like hit or miss. Like some games play fine, and then other ones, I mean, I can't get them barely to work. Not much I can do about that. I don't really know. Um, I do as much as I can, I'll be honest. Anyways, we've got some good news today. We've got Julian Assange being let out of prison. This is from a couple hours ago. Julian Assange is on board VistaJet Flight 199, currently over Afghanistan, en route to Bangkok. After Bangkok, he'll fly to Northern Marina Islands to plead guilty before going to his home country, Australia. That's what I was listening to before I started my stream. I was listening to Mario Nafal live coverage. Julian Assange released from prison. It's official, guys. He's out. I I I didn't think it was going to happen, but I'm really glad to see. Well, actually, let me before I talk too much, let's add a little bit more detail to this because it says Assange prison status unclear. Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, has not been granted bail by the High Court in London. He has spent 1,901 days in prison. The status of his release from Belmarsh Maximum Prison Security Prison in the UK and any potential plea deal with the U.S. Justice Department remains unclear. If this is contradicting that, Julian Assange is free. Julian Assange is free. He left Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison on the morning of June 24th after having 1,901 days there. He was granted bail by the High Court in London and was released at Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he was boarded a plane and departed the UK. This is the result of a global campaign that spanned grassroots organizers, press freedom campaigners, legislators across the political spectrum, all the way to the United Nations. This created the space for a long period of negotiations with the U.S. Department of Justice, leading to a deal that has not yet been formally finalized. We will provide more information as soon as possible. After more than 5 years in a 2 by 3 meter cell, isolated 23 hours a day, he will soon reunite with his wife Stella Assange and their children, who have only known their father from behind bars. WikiLeaks published groundbreaking stories of government corruption and human rights abuses, holding the powerful accountable for their actions. As editor-in-chief, Julian paid severely for principles and for the people's right to know. I just realized with all my weird connection problems, I've actually told myself I was going to start recording this, so I'm actually going to start recording right now, and I'm going to start this over real quick. So I apologize for that. I'm going to restart all of this. Welcome, Thai Site Shadow Games Report. Gonna do part 1 of Battlefront 2 tonight. Got great news. We have Julian Assange being released from prison. I'm just as surprised as anybody. But it appears that this is really happening. He's been released, he's out, and Julian Assange is free. I'll go ahead and read this real quick. Julian Assange is free. He left Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison on the morning of June 24th after having spent 1,901 days there. He was granted bail by the High Court in London and was released at Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he boarded a plane and departed the UK. This is the result of a global campaign that spanned grassroots organizers, press freedom campaigners, legislators, and leaders from across the political spectrum, all the way to the United Nations. This created the space for a long period of negotiations with the U.S. Department of Justice, leading to a deal that has not been formally finalized. We will provide more information as soon as possible. After more than 5 years in a 2 by 3 meter cell, isolated 23 hours a day, he will soon reunite with his wife Stella Assange and their children, who have only known their father from behind bars. WikiLeaks published groundbreaking stories of government corruption and human rights abuses, holding the powerful accountable for their actions. As editor-in-chief, Julian paid severely for these principles and for the people's right to know. As he returns to Australia, We thank all who stood by us, fought for us, and remained utterly committed in the fight for his freedom. Julian's freedom is our freedom. Well said. Well said. So, great news. Finally got Julian out. I guess in not so good news, since this video or the video that I made last night didn't get to go out. I guess I'll talk a little bit about what happened in Sevastopol. Um, there was, I believe, a U.S. drone being flown by Ukraine, but with the help of U.S. intelligence agencies, performed an attack on Sevastopol. Let's see if I can get to that real quick. So I actually covered this video last night, but I'll cover it again just to make sure. Get everything down and pat. Where's my map? I had a map. Okay. I don't know why X does this. Okay, here it is. From Kim.com, he says the U.S. Air Force directed the Atkins missile strike against Russian civilians yesterday. Like I said, I covered this last night, but my stream didn't go through. This is an act of war by the U.S. government against Russia. Did Joe Biden seek permission from Congress to start a direct war with Russia? Did Americans sign up for this? Kim.com did an interview with Alex Jones today on his show. So everyone's saying this could be the event that is kicking off World War III right now. I am holding my breath. I know Putin is smart to hold off on certain attacks before reacting emotionally, but I feel for the Russian people right now. To anyone that was lost in this area, I'm very, very sorry for U.S. acting in this regard. Just know that the U.S. government does not represent the American people right now, and I fully condemn this attack as an American civilian. Let's see. Annalena Pauluna, Anna Paulina Luna, I always say it wrong, is expected to force a vote to jail Merrick Garland next week. I'd like to get an update on that too. Also, whenever this last night, go watch this video with Benny Johnson. Tractor Supply customers furious after extreme woke left activism. Never shop here again. So in this video, it covers actually a local Tennessean. Forgot his name. I actually contacted him, but he's a Cuban American, and he was pointing out that Tractor Supply corporate has gone fully woke, having pride flags and different propaganda kind of spread throughout their corporate office, even having a pride flag on their TV screen, obviously pushing a woke gay agenda in certain senses. Just trying to get their employees to accept all that.
Hey, wait a second. That's not right. I just realized that the title for this video is wrong. Everything's been messing up lately, y'all. I'm sorry. Hopefully this video will actually make it through tonight. Well, it might help if I actually take some of this stuff off the screen. Damn. I am totally screwing up this past week, y'all. I don't know what it is. Not paying attention to stuff the way that I need to. But yeah, I didn't even show that video a second ago, did I? But at least, I guess gave you the rundown with Julian Assange. There was a video I posted about that earlier, just to... Yeah. Well, this is part of it. Yeah, this is whenever he was actually being released from prison. He's not looking in the best of shape, but I'm hoping that he makes full recovery once he gets out of here. Start doing some press releases. Be great to hear his opinion again. Everything that's going on. But hopefully he makes it home safely. And this is left the area on its way to Bangkok, then eventually on its way to Australia. Elon Musk says we aim to eventually build 1,000 ships a year. We nearly completed a new rocket factory, allowing serialized production. Long term, we aim to build 1,000 ships a year, starting with about 100 here. Falcon 9's second stage is produced every 2 days. One second. Okay. At least I corrected my screen issue 10 minutes in. Not trying to do that, but we're at least going to start recording as a backup video, because I wasn't recording last night. Lost my entire video, even though it told me I was streaming the entire time. Let's watch this real quick. So 1,000 ships a year.
I mean, obviously a lot has changed in the last couple of years. I mean, this
It
is
has?
all. Maybe in theory, I don't know. I mean,
Looks exactly the same. Hasn't changed a bit.
what once was tents is now a permanent-looking factory.
Yeah, it used to be intense, and now it's in a building.
Yeah.
So we've got this I think pretty good-looking rocket factory building that we've almost completed. We've completed the exterior. This will enable us to have serialized production of the rocket, especially the ship, which would ultimately be made, long term, probably be making 1,000 a year of the ship. So
1,000 a year.
yeah, well, got to build a city on Mars.
Yeah, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we may not build 1,000 a year right here, but I think this is capable of 100 a year.
Really?
Sure.
Wow.
That's only a ship every 3 days.
And
That's nothing.
And well, and it's funny because now, if you think about it, even Falcon 9 these days, you're producing a second stage about every 2 days. And a few years ago, that would have been impossible. No one would have imagined, that they're building an
And this
upper
year
stage.
we'll make almost 200 upper stages of Falcon.
That's
And
unbelievable.
next year, probably over 200.
That's
So
that's a cadence that people I don't think are, just even, you can't even imagine. You can't even fathom that kind of, output like that. That's just
Falcon
crazy.
9 is actually a heavy lift vehicle, so it's there's roughly 40,000 pounds to orbit.
Yeah.
Which is in normal rocket language would be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
So now Starship's going to be able to do 100 tons to orbit with Starship 2, maybe a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
With Starship 3, like at the 9-meter diameter, essentially when the 9-meter diameter is sort of fully stretched out to what ends up being from 120 meters total length to probably 140 or something like that. Then this is like a lot of optimizations and reducing the amount of propellant needed for landing. Kind of basically do all the things that we've somewhat done with a pretty efficient vehicle. I think we'll be able to do over 200 tons to a useful orbit with Starship.
That's insane.
So, and that's with full reusability. Which is insane. So that's twice the Saturn V with full reusability. And full and rapid reusability. So it's the booster and the ship are coming back to the launch site.
Okay. I just realized that I wasn't streaming on Rumble. I'm fixing that right now while that video was playing in the background. Okay. Don't worry, guys. Even though I'm messing up, I'm actually sliding through these problems pretty well. But anyways, let's get that one going. Let's reload this. Hopefully, at least see the X's. Gonna check everything else real quick before cover anything else. Once I see that we're on Rumble, cross your fingers. 3, 2, 1. Come on, baby. Show me that we're live. Okay. Cool. Alright. We're everywhere we need to be. We're even on YouTube tonight. I don't normally stream on YouTube anymore, but I figured I would give it another shot. Yeah, sorry for the technical issues the past few nights, everybody. Appreciate you hanging through all of that. So yeah, anyways, as I said at the beginning of this video, we'll cover this story one more time. Julian Assange has been released from prison. Rejoice! Freedom! WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has reached a plea deal with the United States and will go free. Assange has pleaded guilty in a plea deal with the Department of Justice after spending 5 years. 5 years in a British prison. Assange was charged by criminal information with conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information, according to NBC. Charges stem from the publication of the classified information starting in 2009. The U.S. government claims Assange conspired with military intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to share tens of thousands of documents. Documents were in relation to the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the State Department, and assessment briefs of Guantanamo Bay detainees. Assange also published emails from the Democratic National Committee in 2016. It's one of his more famous videos talking about the transnational security elite.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan, and back into the hands of the transnational security. That is the goal. i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not successful war.
They don't just go into a country and shoot guns. They go into a country, find allies against the government, train them up, ideologically indoctrinate them, organise them, give them supply lines, and help them take down the government. And a key aspect of that is the Department of State and US embassies. And special forces teams are led, in the formal sense, by the US ambassador in that particular country if there is diplomatic relations occur. Nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. And the media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
We have the right to publish information, all of us. How can it be that a journalist and publisher operating from Europe can be extradited to the United States? We don't operate in the United States. We don't publish from the United States. So that's a threat to all journalists around the world, wherever they operate, that if they expose serious abuses occurring in the national security domain, there's a threat to extradite them, or indict the organization or the.
So very, very happy to actually see that today. I did not expect that. I really didn't. Kind of figured it was going to go a different direction. Just to laugh a little, a broke bartender elected to Congress assumes office in 2019 with a salary of $155,000. Is now worth $29 million. The DOJ is prosecuting Donald Trump. Keep religion out of schools, they say. Oh, really? What about political religions? Whenever that last night. What sucks, though, is that my video didn't work out last night. So I want to cover this story one last time before I run off and start doing other things. It's the second or third time I've covered this story in this video, but since I'm back on Rumble at the moment, the U.S. Air Force directed the Atkins missile strike against Russian civilians today. This act of war by the U.S. government against Russia. Did Joe Biden seek permission from Congress to start a direct war with Russia? Did Americans sign up for this? From Kim.com. Hopefully that video didn't show anything. I also covered this earlier too, but go over it real quick. Tractor Supply has been silently adding Pride memorabilia, or I guess not memorabilia, but what's the word? Paraphernalia? Pride paraphernalia all over their corporate office, having pride flags and trans flags on their TVs. It's kind of weird. Go watch this video if you want to go watch it. It's Benny Johnson's video. I'm not going to get more into that. I'm done with that story. Rep Anna Paulina Luna, which I want to say, the character that I play in this game tonight looks just like her. Remember this face, and you'll be like, holy crap. Like, this looks like the Star Wars character that I'm playing in the game. And I'm going to start it over tonight because, yeah, things didn't work out last night. So, I kind of need to. But she is trying to force a vote for the jailing of Merrick Garland, which would be great. Some kind of justice against the DOJ. DC Drano says Biden regime caught handing out voter registration forms to illegal aliens in 49 states. Media said this wasn't happening. Conspiracy theorists are 101 to 0. Welfare offices in 49 states are handing out voter registration applications to illegal aliens. No proof of citizenship required. I think a lot of that actually came from Mike Johnson, too. Yeah, he says it in this video. Only 35 seconds, I'll cover it real quick. Cover part of this video with Z. This is all videos from last night.
And he's allowed in, of course, millions of illegals. They welcome them with open arms. They put them on taxpayer benefits, you know. They've sent them all around the country. And included in that number, of course, is terrorists on the known dangerous people on the terrorist watch list. We have violent criminals now. We have more and more stories like Rachel Morin and Laken Riley and innocent Americans who are being preyed upon. And this is going to continue for the foreseeable future. And now we're worried about terrorist attacks on the homeland. He allowed all this, but not just allowed it, Mark, he engineered it. They did it intentionally, and the American people know that, and that's why they're so fed up. And he's allowed in, of course, millions of illegals.
And the Vigilant Fox, which is Vigilant News. Another COVID conspiracy becomes reality. Proof that COVID shots damage cognition. This was deemed a conspiracy theory, but now we have the data to back it up. The bombshell study from South Korea showed the COVID-injected experienced a 68% rise in depression, 44% surge in anxiety and related disorders, and a 3.4% increase in sleep disorders, staggering 138% jump in mild cognitive impairment, 23% rise in Alzheimer's disease. Let Maria Z finish her thoughts.
Well, we now have proof that the COVID injections damage cognition. Held report, a Midwestern doctor examines the causes and treatments of common neurological injuries caused by vaccination. The story at a glance, and it is incredibly detailed, so we'll take you through some of it and we encourage everyone to read it in full. But basically, we have subtle and overt neurological injuries, which are one of the most common results of a pharmaceutical injury. The COVID-19 injections excel at causing damage to cognition, and many of us have noticed both subtle and over cognitive impairment following vaccination that relatively few people know how to address. For a long time, the hypothesis that the vaccines impaired cognition was anecdotal because it was based on individuals observing it in their peer group or patients. Recently, large data sets emerged which show this phenomenon is very real and that the severe injuries we've seen from the vaccines, e.g. sudden death, are only the tip of the iceberg. He says in this article, we will review the proof vaccines are doing this and explore the mechanisms which allow it to happen so we can better understand how to treat it. The article covers extensively patterns of vaccine injury and again read it in full, but I wanted to highlight this section specifically. It says, colleagues who treated vaccine injury patients told me cognitive impairment was one of the most common symptoms they saw and was particularly noteworthy because they'd never seen anything like that happen to young adults. To quote Pierre Corey, in my practice of treating vaccine injuries, one of the 3 most common symptoms I see is brain fog. So many of my patients had been in the prime of their lives, can now barely function, have significant cognitive impairment, and need a lot of help from our nurses to carry out their treatment plans. I never imagined I would see any of this in people far younger than me, and instead I see it every day. I bear witness to an immense amount of suffering on a daily basis that is hard to put into words. The author then talks about the overdiagnosis of Alzheimer's in America and how it's often the blanket diagnosis, if you will, for any time a patient shows signs of impaired cognition. It says this, I in turn would argue, has been because there is minimal interest in understanding the causes and treatments of Alzheimer's disease, as there's so much money in research for it and productive, expensive, but useless and harmful drugs for it. On to the evidence of cognitive impairment. It says, at the same time I was observing these effects, many rumours were also swirling around online that these vaccines would cause severe cognitive impairment and that we would witness a zombie apocalypse from the vaccine injuries. Of course, that zombie apocalypse per se never occurred and highlights the importance of us being accurate with our assessments and predictions, and of course that's true. But he wants to point to a recent article from Igor Chudov, and it's quoted, "I own a small business and deal with many people and other small businesses. Most provided reliable service, would remember appointments, followed up on issues, and so on. I noticed that lately, some people have become less capable cognitively. They forget essential appointments, cannot concentrate, make crazy, stupid mistakes, and so on. In my own case, in addition to poorly performing colleagues, the most evident change I noticed was a worsening of drivers around me and had quite a few near misses from impaired driving." The article says the great challenge with these situations is that it's very hard to tell if something's actually happening or your perception is simply a product of confirmation bias. For this reason, while I was comfortable asserting my belief the COVID-19 vaccines were causing the severe injuries on either end of the bell curve, I avoided doing so for many of the less impactful injuries in the middle, where it was much more ambiguous if what I was observing was real or simply my own biased perception of the events around me. But he says, because of this, I never mentioned the changes in driving that he observed. But then he pointed to this data set after publishing that original article, which suggests this issue was happening, but it's difficult to properly assess because COVID-19 can also cause cognitive impairment and less people were driving in 2020, and because the data set still has not been updated since 2022. But recently, Igor Chudov was able to identify another data set from the Netherlands, which further corroborated that we were indeed facing a massive cognitive decline. Primary care data for January to March 2023 showed that adults visited their GP more frequently for a number of symptoms compared to the same period in 2019. Memory and concentration problems were significantly more common last year and in the period before COVID-19, where these symptoms are concerned. The difference compared to 2019 is growing steadily in each quarter. In the first quarter of 2023, there was a 24% increase in GP visits related to memory and concentration problems amongst adults that were aged 25 years or older compared to the same period in 2020. This is evidenced by the latest quarterly research update from the GOR network. The increase in memory and concentration problems of adults seems to be a longer-term effect of the coronavirus measures as well as COVID infections. More specific